We begin with the human appetite. A hunger that was once simple has become distorted. What was meant to nourish has become weaponized. You think you choose your meals, but what if your meals are choosing you? The appetites of man have always been the easiest to exploit, and now they are the most camouflaged. Not every craving is natural. Some are summoned. Fast food chains, those shrines of instant satisfaction, are not as innocent as they appear. Behind the smell of sizzling patties and the glow of neon menus is a different kind of fire, one not kindled in a kitchen, but in a spiritual realm. Certain establishments have long crossed the line between business and bewitchment. Their foundations are soaked in rituals, their success sealed not by quality, but by invocation. Observe their symbols, the architecture, the logos, the mascots. Look long enough and you'll see the mocking eyes, the ancient signs, the reversed meanings. Why does one brand resemble an inverted pentagram? Why does another have a ritualistic chant in its ads? Why are children's meals packaged with suggestive themes and obscure icons? These aren't accidents. They are incantations wrapped in commerce. You ask, how can food be cursed? Because in many traditions, both sacred and profane, food is the most direct gateway to the soul. Ingesting something is not just physical. It is spiritual agreement. When you eat what was offered under unholy intentions, you take in more than grease. You take in influence. You absorb spells cast not with wands, but with branding, repetition, and the spirit behind the menu. Certain chains are plagued, not by poor reviews, but by dark partnerships. Whispers of midnight rituals, ex-employees revealing odd requirements during store openings, symbols drawn beneath the floorboards. You think it's just bad service, but what if it's a cursed franchise? What if it was never about the sandwich, but the stronghold? Culture laughs, and that is precisely the spell. Humor is the cloak. The dancing mascot, the parody, themed burgers, the trendy collaborations with celebrities dabbling in occultism, these are all distractions. Every time you laugh at something that mocks virtue, you silence the warning bells in your spirit. Desensitization is the devil's most subtle ally, and here's the tragedy. We feed our children in these places. We raise generations in booths where spiritual dullness is served with ketchup. We normalize the worship of idols with combo deals. We trade discernment for discounts, and we call it just food. But friends, there is a different kind of hunger rising in this generation, a hunger for clarity, for wisdom, for truth. It begins with asking hard questions, with resisting what everyone calls normal, with stepping out of convenience and into conviction. You cannot break curses while you're still feeding them. Discernment must become the new diet. Read not just the ingredients, but the spirit behind the brand. Question not just what it sells, but what it serves in the spirit. Eat what brings life, not what numbs you into deeper bondage. There is a power in saying no, and there is a future in staying awake. Avoid what bewitches, avoid what blinds. You were never meant to be a customer of curses. There has always been a war, not of politics or borders, but of hunger, a war for the appetite of mankind. Not the kind that craves bread alone, but the kind that silently controls your attention, decisions, and desires. You are not just what you eat. You are what you submit to when you eat. Look closely at history, and you'll find that appetite has always been the entry point of dominion. The fall of mankind began with a bite, not a murder, not a theft, a bite, a temptation wrapped in taste, and what was promised through it was not just fullness, but godhood, knowledge, experience, power. The same trick has never changed, only the packaging. You must understand, not every hunger you feel is your own. Some cravings are implanted, some are broadcasted, some are summoned. Modern man believes he is rational, that his decisions are purely intellectual, but tell a man who has just seen a double patty burger advertisement for the 10th time that he is in full control. He is not. He's already been lured, primed, softened. And not just by salt and fat, but by the spirit behind it. The war for the human appetite is no longer about survival. It is now a conflict between craving and calling, between discipline and impulse, between momentary pleasure and eternal alignment. In the old world, hunger made men hunt. Now hunger makes men submit. It makes them scroll without end, order without pause, eat without discernment, all because something whispered to their belly louder than truth could speak to their soul. The human appetite is now the most manipulated gateway in the world. Technology feeds it, culture glamorizes it, and darker forces behind curtains exploit it. This is why modern food is not only designed to be addictive, it is designed to bypass logic. The way it smells, the way it sounds when bitten, the packaging, the lighting of the restaurant, the color of the brand, none of these are random. They are constructed to disarm your awareness and feed something in you that was never meant to be dominant. Desire, when disconnected from purpose, becomes destruction in disguise, and the enemy of the soul knows this well. Wherever there is appetite, there is opportunity, and while you're busy satisfying the surface-level urge, something else might be feeding on your agreement. This is why some fast food chains are more than food sellers. They are appetite trainers. They are altar builders in disguise. They condition you to want what is empty. They normalize addiction as routine. And worst of all, they create spiritual numbness under the cloak of convenience. These chains don't only feed the stomach, they dull the conscience. They are not feeding you, they are forming you slowly, repetitively, subtly, until your soul cannot say no to what your mouth keeps saying yes to. Think of it this way: every bite is not just nutrition, it is participation. In the spiritual realm, eating is never neutral. It is covenant, it is alignment, it is permission. This is why in both sacred and occult traditions, meals are central to rituals, because eating is accepting, ingesting is inviting. Now ask yourself, what spirit designed the appetite you obey? There is a reason these chains never sleep. There is a reason the same names are found in every nation, every city, every neighborhood. This is not mere business expansion. It is colonization of craving. When you normalize addictive foods that lack nourishment, you are not just neglecting your health, you are surrendering your discernment. The war for your appetite is not about making you fat, it is about making you forget. Forget your calling, forget your convictions, forget your authority to resist, because once your appetite owns you, nothing else will. This is why the deeper danger is not obesity, it is obedience to the wrong master. This is not to demonize food, but to deconstruct false innocence. You do not win this war by starvation, you win it by consecration, by returning appetite to its rightful place, a servant, not a ruler. Fast food chains, especially those rooted in darker spiritual practices, understand this better than most believers do. They don't sell food, they sell forgetfulness wrapped in fries. And if you think this is just an overreaction, consider this. Why do you crave what you know is killing you? Why do you return to what never satisfies? Why do you laugh at the very chains binding you? Because you've been taught to call bondage comfort. This is not a war of calories, it's a war of covenant. And the appetite is the battlefield. Wake up before you're devoured. What enters your body does not stop at digestion. It speaks to your blood, your mood, your will, your clarity. The appetite is only the front door. What comes through that door does not stay on the porch. There are two truths people avoid because they are too heavy for shallow living. 1. Every created thing carries energy. 2. Every energy is either consecrated or corrupted. The same applies to food, and even more so to food that is mass-produced, spiritually neglected, or willfully profaned. Not every meal fills you. Some meals follow you. You walk away from the counter thinking you've just eaten something ordinary. But if you could see what your soul sees, you'd notice the invisible residue, an unease, a numbness, a sudden disconnection from conviction. That is not coincidence, it is consequence. When food is prepared under unclean intentions, it doesn't just feed your stomach. It clouds your spirit. We have been trained to care only about carbs, fats, and sugar, but not about the hands that made it, not about the music that played in the kitchen, not about the words spoken during preparation, not about the spirits present in the environment of origin. But spiritual contamination does not need your belief to operate. It only needs your participation. A burger made in mockery of truth still carries that mockery in every bite. A milkshake prepared under blasphemous slogans still echoes those slogans in your body. You don't digest rebellion, you adopt it. Fast food chains are not just manufacturers of meals, they are vessels of influence. When a franchise embraces occult symbolism, celebrates dark themes, or openly mocks holiness in its marketing, you must ask, what spirit is feeding me here? Because food is more than chemistry. It is culture. It is agreement. It is energy, either defiled or clean. Ancient cultures understood this. Meals were sacred acts. Bread was broken with honor. Food was prayed over. Meals were not rushed. They were reverent. Because eating was not just about survival, but about spiritual alignment. Now we sit in fluorescent lit booths, ingesting chemically enhanced rituals while laughing at TikToks. We digest chaos without noticing. And the darkness smiles. We have forgotten that even in Scripture, food has always been tied to identity and covenant. Daniel refused the king's portion, not because it tasted bad, but because it was spiritually polluted. That meat came from rituals, that wine came from idols. Eating it would have meant agreement. He chose clarity over conformity, purity over participation. Can you say the same? Today's rituals are more disguised. They do not require blood sacrifices on stone altars. They only require your silence and your hunger. Some chains have partnered with artists and influencers who openly glorify witchcraft, satanic symbols, and anti-God messages. Then they release limited edition of meals with strange names and coded packaging. These aren't just collaborations, they are declarations, and every bite is a silent yes. The sad part is, the average person will mock this perspective. They'll say, it's just a sandwich, or you're overthinking it, but those same people will cleanse their energy with crystals and refuse to drink water from certain brands. They'll believe in manifestation, but ignore the spirit behind what they swallow. Discernment isn't extremism, it's survival, because what you eat does not end at digestion. It continues through vibration. It affects how you pray. It affects how you hear truth. It affects how quickly you respond to conviction. That's why after certain meals you feel lazy, not just physically, but spiritually dull. You feel more open to sin, less interested in purpose. You feel like scrolling endlessly, not seeking truth. That's not digestion. That's spiritual residue. Some fast food chains carry curses in their process, not by accident, but by intent. Staff trained under rituals, kitchen designs based on occult geometry, franchise launches aligned with moon phases, mascots that echo ancient spirits in cartoon form. Nothing is just branding anymore. It is spiritual suggestion dressed as consumer experience. If you understood the weight of what you ingest, you'd pray over every bite like your life depended on it. Because it does. Your discernment begins where your denial ends, and once your eyes open, even the smell of some food will make your spirit recoil. You'll know, not because of paranoia, but because of purity. You'll begin to feel the difference between food that lifts you and food that latches onto you. Avoid meals prepared in darkness. Reject what comes with mockery. Not everything tasty is safe. Not everything cheap is clean. What you eat enters more than your mouth. It enters your soul's atmosphere. What you consume doesn't begin in your mouth. It begins with your eyes. Symbols are not decorations. They are declarations. A logo is never just a logo. It is a message, a signature, a silent sermon delivered before the meal ever reaches your hand. We have moved from food being served in simplicity to it being baptized in branding. The modern fast food industry doesn't just serve meals, it sells identities. Belonging, imagery soaked in ancient languages most can't read, but everyone accepts. You walk into a chain restaurant and see a smiling mascot, but have you ever asked, why is he always watching? Why does he never age? Why does he resemble pagan totems, frozen in permanent glee? You look at the signage, shapes that resemble inverted stars, swirls that echo old esoteric spirals, eyes embedded into emblems, all normalized. All dismissed as creative design, but nothing in commercial branding, especially global food chains, is done accidentally. These are billion-dollar corporations. Every symbol, every angle, every color is calculated. Red and yellow, colors of urgency, hunger, and attention, used not just to stimulate appetite, but to disarm discernment, used in rituals for centuries to awaken base instincts. The arches, the circles, the horn designs in plain sight, this is the language of the subconscious. And when a generation is taught to laugh at it, it stops questioning it. Before you place your order, you've already agreed. You've walked through symbols that were once carved into temples of idols, now etched into napkin dispensers and menu boards. And the danger is subtlety. In the previous age, you had to enter temples for initiation. Now you walk into a drive, through. The world has learned how to take the sacred and repackage it in silliness. The enemy of the soul no longer hides. He markets. He brands, he sponsors. You must ask, why are these brands partnering with celebrities known for occult affiliations? Why do their promotional materials include goats, snakes, eyes, horns, and references to spells and cosmic energies? Why do their seasonal releases coincide with full moons, solstices, or numerologically significant dates? This is not coincidence. It is coordination. It is not marketing. It is manifestation. They are not just selling a product. They are conjuring participation. And the food is merely the final step, but the ritual began when you walked in. Symbolism, in ancient understanding, was power, a portal, a code that grants access or influence. Every temple used symbols to mark the territory as claimed. Every demonic contract began with a sign. Now these signs are printed on fry containers, and we call it branding. Look again at the architecture. Some buildings shaped like pyramids, some like towers, some like portals. Why would a burger shop need a 13-point star in its window design? Why is a milkshake bar shaped like an all-seeing eye? Because the spiritual realm respects patterns. It recognizes signatures. It moves where it is invited, and symbols are invitations. And while the masses stay entertained, distracted, and hungry, these places become modern sanctuaries for dark communion. This is not superstition. It is recognition, because the more symbols you tolerate, the less conviction you carry. Every visual you accept without discernment is another dulling of your senses, and soon what once looked strange begins to feel familiar. Then entertaining, then comforting. This is the goal of symbolic desensitization, to take what once made your spirit uneasy, and wrap it in laughter, fries, and music. The devil doesn't need to curse you violently. He only needs to feed you gradually, and if you don't know what the signs mean, you won't know when you've entered agreement. These symbols appear in the uniforms, the posters, even in the tray liners beneath your food. They are everywhere. You eat under them, you eat with them, and without knowing it, you eat for them. You think you're just buying a combo meal, but you're participating in a culture that honors gods your ancestors once fought to destroy. The rise of symbolism in these chains is not trend, it is territory, because once symbols become normalized, so do spirits, and if you won't question the symbol, you will never discern the spirit behind the sandwich. You cannot claim spiritual clarity while sitting comfortably beneath carved confusion. What you tolerate visually, you ingest spiritually. This is not about avoiding food. It is about recognizing the gates. Because gates are always marked, and once you enter under a marked gate, you eat what that gate offers, both seen and unseen. What began as symbols became systems, and once systems are accepted, spirits are sustained. A logo on a bag becomes a totem. A ritualized ad campaign becomes a chant, and the restaurant becomes a temple of transactions where the altar is a counter, and the sacrifice is your discernment. Commerce is no longer clean. It is conjuring. Once upon a time, business was rooted in service. Today, some businesses are rooted in sorcery. Behind the front of smiling staff and catchy jingles, some chains are operating under spiritual darkness that disguises itself as brand culture. Do not be naive. Witchcraft has always followed money, and now it is not just following it, it is funding it, where millions gather blindly, where consumers return religiously, and where no questions are asked. That is where spirits settle comfortably. These are not conspiracy whispers. They are commercial realities hiding in public rituals. Open your eyes to the timing. Why do certain chains always launch their boldest campaigns during Halloween? Why do they name products after spells, potions, zodiac signs, or pagan deities? Why do they insert occult phrases subtly into menu items or limited-time collaborations? Why do they hire consultants trained in energy mapping to design store layouts? Because the goal is not just appetite, it's atmosphere. These chains don't just feed you, they shape you. They are not just selling food, they are selling submission in increments. A customer is no longer a consumer. He is a participant in a ritual he doesn't know he's part of. This is why you'll see grand openings that involve candlelight rituals or numerology alignment. You'll hear of chains hiring spiritual advisors, not for ethics, but for energetic imprinting of space. You'll read testimonies from ex-workers about bizarre meetings, chants during training, and silent codes baked into slogans. Laughter covers it, but laughter is the cloak. Mockery is the mask, because if they present it as just edgy marketing, you'll laugh instead of leave. Commerce has become a medium of transfer. In ancient witchcraft, food and drink were used to establish spiritual access. Blood was the highest offering. Bread and wine were covenant symbols. Salt and meat were tools of agreement. The same strategies still work today, but now they're wrapped in grease and sugar. If you think witchcraft is all potions and candles, you've already misunderstood its modern form. Today, its marketing strategies built on energy manipulation. Its subliminal beats embedded in background music. Its employee rituals disguised as motivation. Its spiritual programming baked into loyalty cards, apps, and menus. Its frequency control through store playlists that influence emotion and craving. Its scent mapping designed to lower mental resistance and open spiritual suggestion. Some stores use hexagonal architecture, mirrored panels, and placement of objects that align with known occult geometry, all borrowed from pagan temples. All normalized in the name of aesthetics, but spirits don't need your permission when you sit comfortably inside their architecture. You walk in for a burger, but you leave with a fog in your spirit. You blame tiredness or mood swings or a lazy day, but you never trace it back to the moment you laughed at the ad showing a celebrity sipping a Lucifer latte, or holding a bag marked with a reversed cross and called it genius branding. This is not about paranoia. It is about patterns. The devil no longer hides in forests. He hides in franchises, and not every franchise participates, but some absolutely do. There are businesses that partner with spiritualists to bless. Their products for success, not through prayer, but through invocation. Spells placed on packaging lines, symbols carved into storage walls, dedicatory rituals done during corporate retreats, and you eat it thinking it's just food, but your soul begins to feel the subtle shift. You crave more, not just the food, but the passivity, the escape, the mental fog, the spiritual laziness. That's not taste, that's a trap. You're being kept in a cycle of hunger that feeds more than your stomach. Because the witchcraft behind these chains doesn't aim to hurt you in a day. It aims to numb you over time, to trade your sharpness for comfort, to replace your prayers with cravings, to make rebellion look tasty and surrender feel unnecessary. And if you question it, you're called extreme. But better extreme with clarity than casual in captivity. Some chains feed you food, others feed you fog. Learn the difference before it eats away what's left of your discernment. You don't need to cast a spell if people laugh at the curse. You don't need to hide a ritual if people sing along to it. Desensitization is more dangerous than deception, because it doesn't just blind you, it trains you to enjoy the darkness. In the previous keynote, we uncovered how some chains use witchcraft, symbolism, and spiritual manipulation to influence more than appetites. But how is it that entire populations welcome this? Because the culture has become the cauldron. What was once offensive is now nostalgic. What was once sacred is now spoofed. What was once demonic is now called aesthetic. You've seen the slogans, sinfully delicious, wicked flavors, indulge your demons. They are not hiding anymore. You are just too entertained to resist. You were trained to call it edgy, clever, modern. You were told to laugh at darkness and label conviction as paranoia. And slowly, your resistance became silence. This is not passive, it is intentional. The enemy of the soul does not need you to bow to idols anymore. He only needs you to follow trends that do it for you, wrapped in jokes, packaged in collabs, promoted by influencers who have traded their peace for platforms. Culture now celebrates what generations before would have fled from. Fast food chains now partner with music artists known for invoking spirits in performances. Their faces are printed on cups, their chants become limited-time menu names. Their darkness becomes a menu theme, and people call it marketing genius. But this is not genius, this is grooming. The culture has made it normal to mock what is holy and exalt what is perverse. A burger wrapped in occult symbols. Trendy, a meal dedicated to a holiday rooted in ritual sacrifice. Fun, an ad campaign quoting spells. Viral, this is not just food, this is conditioning, and the more you consume it, the more it rewrites your convictions. Your spiritual instincts were not meant to be replaced by brand loyalty. Yet here we are, where people will skip prayer but never skip a meal drop from their favorite franchise, where families gather more faithfully at a drive-through than at an altar, where children recognize corporate mascots before they can recognize discernment. This is not evolution, this is erosion, and the tool being used most effectively is humor. You laughed at the commercial, so you never questioned the message. You danced to the jingle, so you never noticed the symbol in the background. You reposted the trend, so you became an evangelist for the same chain feeding the fog. Culture has become a cauldron, not through open darkness, but through celebrated dullness. And every time you laugh at what should have stirred caution, you participate in your own softening. Desensitization doesn't mean you agree. It means you stop noticing. It's why you don't flinch anymore when the cashier wears a pin with inverted icons. It's why you don't feel a shift when the music playing in the background chants ancient names. It's why you feel comfortable under signage that echoes the temples of foreign gods, because repetition wears down reverence. And once reverence dies, replacement begins. What was once sacred gets swapped for what is trending. What was once offensive becomes art. What was once unthinkable becomes normal. But normal is not always safe. Normal is what the world becomes after 100 small compromises, and culture trains you to compromise by calling it inclusion, progress, And fun. They are not just changing menus, they are changing minds. You are not just ordering food, you are being ordered into formation. So now you wear the merch, chant the slogan, and tag the location, and never once feel the spirit behind the system, because the system made you call it entertainment. And this is how the cauldron cooks, not with fire, with familiarity. It simmers you in passivity, it stirs you in confusion, and while you post, laugh, eat, and scroll, you are being seasoned for silence. You don't need to agree with darkness to be ruled by it. You only need to become numb to its presence. That is desensitization. It's not about making you evil. It's about making you unable to feel evil anymore. And once that happens, evil wins, wearing a smile, holding a tray, and offering you a limited edition shake with your name spelled wrong. You've seen the fog. You've heard the chants disguised as jingles. You've watched the shift, what was once sacred now mocked, what was once vile now marketed, and now the question must be asked, how do you resist a system that hides behind smiles and fries? The answer is not a new food plan. It is not protest, it is not fear, it is discernment. Discernment is not suspicion, it is not paranoia, it is clarity born from truth. A clean stomach means nothing if your spirit stays filled with confusion. Discernment is the ability to see beyond packaging, to recognize the hands behind the product, to detect the source, not just the surface. When culture becomes the cauldron, when witchcraft becomes a joke, when branding becomes a gateway, discernment becomes your last defense. And it is not taught. It is developed. You don't get discernment by scrolling. You get it by separation, by silence, by surrender. You train your discernment the way you train your taste buds. You stop feeding it what's fake. You start pursuing what's pure. You start saying no, not because something is trending, but because something is tainted. You choose not to laugh when everyone else is laughing. You refuse to repost the spell just because it's funny. You stop going to places that sell food wrapped in mockery, darkness, and numbness. Discernment requires loss. You may lose convenience, you may lose popularity, you may lose cravings that once felt like comfort, but in return you gain vision. You begin to see what others call coincidence as strategy. You feel what others ignore. You sense the shift in atmosphere before the ad even ends. Discernment is not loud. It is not flashy. It is quiet conviction that walks out when the crowd walks in. It is the invisible alarm in your spirit that says, this isn't just food. This isn't just fun. This isn't just branding. It is not about seeing demons in every design. It is about recognizing the fingerprints of deception when something feels off, forced, or spiritually foul. Discernment is how you survive when deception has gone mainstream. It's how you raise children who ask questions about what they're served, not just on their plate, but on their screen. It's how you resist compromise when it's being sold for $4.99 with a side of fries. It's how you recognize that not every collaboration is innocent, not every menu item is harmless, and not every restaurant is just a restaurant. Discernment changes your appetite. You begin to crave peace over popularity. You crave truth over taste. You crave what keeps your soul sharp, not what leaves you spiritually sluggish. You read the menu differently. You walk into spaces differently. You begin to notice who owns the brand, what they believe, what they push, and what you're really supporting. You choose silence over stimulation, stillness over speed, simplicity over symbolism. Discernment helps you recognize that some appetites aren't yours. They were implanted. It helps you detox from the spiritual fog caused by years of passive participation. It helps you rebuild your convictions from the ruins of what culture normalized. It helps you separate real hunger from hypnotized craving. And once you've tasted clarity, confusion loses its flavor. Discernment doesn't make you better than others. It makes you aware of what others ignore. It makes you a gatekeeper for your own soul. It makes you harder to deceive. It makes you spiritually alert in a world addicted to noise. This is the new diet, not just gluten-free, not just low sugar, not just organic, but spiritually clean, emotionally stable, energetically pure. You won't find it on a menu. You find it through surrender, through stillness, through separation from systems that use entertainment to enchant. Discernment becomes your new filter. If it carries confusion, reject it. If it glorifies darkness, walk away. If it dulls your conviction, leave the table. You don't need to taste everything to know it's poison, because you've already eaten clarity. And now your spirit knows the difference.